We're going to continue our Glenfarclus whiskey presentation from our recent distillery tour and review the popular Glenfarclus 17-year-old as well as the iconic 15-year-old, which was old George Grant's favorite whiskey that he bottled at 46% ABV. So this is the story of how the 15 ended up with a different and higher ABV than the rest of their core range whiskeys. Old George Grant wanted to give Christmas gifts to all his friends, so he opened up a special cask that was at 53% ABV. He was able to get 200 bottles out of that cask, but had 230 friends to gift. He was a generous man, but he was also frugal, so he didn't want to have to open up a second cask. He needed to get more bottles out of that cask. He decided to reduce the ABV to 40%, but the whiskey ended up too flat and had lost most of its flavor. He then tried it at 46% ABV, and the Glenfarclus flavors and balance had all come back. Now the whiskey was perfect and he had enough gifts for all his friends, and it has stayed at that strength ever since. Most distilleries today age their whiskeys for the majority of their years in affordable American bourbon barrels and then finish their whiskeys in sherry butts, port pipes, wine casks, or even rum casks. What is unique about Glenfarclus is they have always aged their whiskeys for their full life in sherry casks, which can be 8 times the cost of a bourbon barrel. The Grant family have not taken shortcuts in cutting costs that most distilleries are doing today. To keep the quality and consistency of their whiskey, they are still using the old school method of direct firing their stills. This has been proven to produce different, if not more complex flavors in their whiskey. Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and we're going to continue our exploration of the Glenfarclus whiskies. Now, the previous review, we tackled the 10, the 12, and the 105. Now, a couple of those whiskies we did bring back from the distillery in Scotland with our tour, and we are now going to go after the 17 and of course the 15 here. Now the 17 is 43. It's pretty much their core range ABV. What's different here is the 15 is at 46% ABV. We'll probably start the review with the 17. It is the lower ABV, and I think it's a better idea to start with the lighter whiskey, and then we'll move on to the 15. So we're gonna show you these whiskeys here. This is the 17. There's a little darker amber, kind of a darker amber tea color to the 15, which of course is on your right. And if you look at the 17, it's just so slightly lighter. I don't know. Kind of interesting. We talk about this 6th generation Grant family. We think of Glenfarclus, we think of the name Grant, but there is another name that comes into play when you're talking Glenfarclus, and that name is Philip Pip Hills. So what is the connection between Glenfarclus and Philip Pip Hills? Well, Philip Pip Hills was he was a fellow that he was actually originally a young fellow that got into mountain climbing, and he did basically climb a few peaks in Scotland, difficult peaks in Scotland, and had a bad accident and had to get out of mountain climbing at a fairly young age. And so, he went back and he studied in university philosophy, Edinburgh and Glasgow. He went to both universities. literature, etc. He did get his master's. He did a lot of interesting things. He got into scuba diving. He had a friend, Duncan McArdle, who they did a bunch of exploration of certain historic sites in that underwater. He used to visit Duncan in later years up in Aberdeenshire, where Duncan had moved. And on one of his visits up there, he was offered a dram of this whiskey in a lemonade container. And Pip Hills was not really a fan of Scotch whiskey. He didn't really care for it that much, but he obliged, and he had, he had a sip of it, and he was so taken by this whiskey. He finished the full dram, and he just thought, boy, this is incredible stuff. This isn't like the normal Scotch whiskey that I've drank before, and he really liked the stuff. Well, he had made numerous trips and visits. And so, because Duncan was aware he really liked the whiskey, he had a neighbor that he was getting this whiskey off of, and he would bring over a lemonade bottle full of this whiskey, which he would get from a cask that he had in his house. Now, once a year, and his neighbor's name was Stan, and he was a farmer. And once a year, he would take his ancient Land Rover across the Cabrac, and the Cabrac was the area that they lived in Aberdeenshire, and he would go to Glenfarclus distillery, and John Grant would sell him a quarter cask of cask strength whiskey, and he would bring this back, and it would last him for a year. And of course, that is what he was bringing over to Duncan's place. So Pip Hills, after meeting Stan and hearing the story about where the whiskey came from, he actually brought back a bottle of that and let some of his friends try it, and his friends were astonished by it as well. They'd never tasted anything like that, because nobody drank cask strength whiskey that single malt. It wasn't a blend. So they wondered, what can you get any more of this stuff? Because you really should try to get yourself, more of it. Well, Pip realized that the only way he was going to get enough to satisfy himself and his friends was to get a cask of it. But again, he wasn't, he was not sure that John Grant would sell him a cask. But he did phone John Grant and ask him, is there a chance I could get a cask of this stuff? And, John Grant said, we have a bunch of customers here already that we're selling to, so the only chance would be if one of these customers passed away. And sure enough, one of the customers did pass away, and Pip was able to purchase a cask off of John Grant at Glenfarclus. So he brings this cask back to Edinburgh, and his friends, his group of friends, they all get a chance to, and they share it because they all pitched in on it. And of course, they're serving it to their friends. Before you know it, you've got this huge community in Edinburgh that are trying out this amazing whiskey. It was sort of become cult, that, have you heard about this whiskey? So Pip Hills was getting calls and messages from people he didn't even know. Is there any chance you can get me some of this whiskey? So Pip Hills sort of realized that, we're going to have to get another cask of this stuff. So he calls, John Grant again and asks them. And John Grant was obliging. Sure, we'll get you another cask. So that just created a bigger problem, because now you've got that many more people that are, starting to want access to this whiskey. And we could say that was the foundation for the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, because what had happened was, they eventually had to get, some people involved that were professionals to form this organization, and they did. Pip Hills went and registered it as the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. He brought on some professionals, people that were involved in the whiskey industry. He had people that had accounting background, that had management background, and the society grew. And Pibb Hills is basically his accident in discovering that whiskey in a lemonade bottle. That is the connection. Your Glenfarclus cask strength quarter cask from Stan, and of course Pibb Hills creating the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So let's get into this review and let's see what the 17 is all about here. So we're going to start with the nose of the 17. Lots of Christmas cake. We got a little bit of a musty nose there. Yeah, I mean a little bit of musty nose, but flower garden in the background, maybe some lilacs. Christmas pudding, some spices, allspice, some malt notes, kind of grassiness, hay, and we've got I'm going to say some chocolate, maybe even some coffee there going on. Okay, the palate of the 17, Solangeban. We're more of the Christmas cake, Christmas pudding, dates, figs, raisins, some peaches and apricots, stewed plums, maybe even stewed apricots, and granola, rich granola, like the dark fruit granola. Some nuttiness to it there. Maybe some filberts, some almonds, and a bit of coating on my mouth there, kind of dry coating. Tobacco in the background, very light, very slight tobacco, but I'm getting a little bit of a prickly, slight astringency, probably the wood. 17 years and probably from the cask. It's certainly, it's not off-putting, the astringency. The wood astringency is not off-putting. But now we are going to go for the development and the finish. I'm still getting the wood, and I'm going to say it's not a long finish. It's not short, kind of a short side of medium. The Oloroso, or possibly even some PX, because it is sweet. Their casks come from Miguel Martin in Jerez, Spain, from the cooperage there. So we know that these are exclusive in sherry casks. That's their full age, their life. Glenfarclus does not believe in just doing the finishing. They're doing the full age. So chocolate. I'm going to say a creaminess to it. And maybe even some mocha. I mentioned the coffee. The tobacco's kind of disappearing now. Wood's still there though. And the granola is strong. We're going to add a drop of water. See what a drop of water does. Give her the old swirl. Nose with water. Oh yeah, sure opened it up. Lots of citrus, orange, still getting the flower garden, Richard Gardens there. Mustiness is kind of gone. And gonna stay with the orange and chocolate. Got, besides the lilacs, I get little wee bits of fennel. And there's some licorice notes there. It could be the black and the red here now. Let's do the palate with water, Cilantro. It's amazing how the water really sweetens up the Christmas pudding and the Christmas cake, shortbread cookies. Granola's still there. I'm going to malty, but the sherry notes, dark fruits, sultanas, figs, fig Newtons. It's going to be, even I mentioned before, this is a little on the shorter side of finish, but it does still leave a bit of a coating in your mouth, and it's just more of one of these type of drinks where there's no spikes. Like even the wood it's not biting, you know. It's a fairly easy dram. The water brings out certainly fragrance, almost like a cologne, and of course that sweetness, maple syrup maybe. But I am now going to tackle the 15. Now, I'm not going to score this right now. I want to compare the 15, see where it's going. So we'll leave that one and we'll work on the 15 here. The difference again is that this one here was 43 ABV. This is going to be 46 ABV. So we'll start off with the 15, 46 ABV nose. So the nose is a more intense version of this, the 17. And I'm getting slight sulfur notes there. We've got still a bit of the musty stuff going on with those sulfur notes, but you can really nose the sherry, the Oloroso. There might be some PX in here too. Cinnamon and definitely there. Cinnamon. I am getting some orange, citrus notes, and the Bashar Gardens is still there. Intense. It's just a little bit more intense. The palate, the 15 at 46, Cilantro. There's more alcohol for sure. You are tasting the alcohol. More depth to it. More sweetness. I'm getting more Oloroso, more pudding, more Christmas pudding, more Christmas cake, cinnamon, allspice, some of the hotter spices, a little white pepper. I just got another whiff of that fennel again. That keeps happening, that fennel there. A little bit of licorice, the black licorice here. And I'm going to throw in the red as well, black and red licorice. I might have even tasted a cherry there. It is definitely an amplified version of the 17 is what it is. I'm not getting any bite with wood right now. But boy, my mouth is dry. It leaves quite a dry coating. And it's quite a coating on there. So we're going to work on the development and the finish. Ah, boy. It's going to be a long finish. This has definitely got a longer finish than the 17. It's got just a heavier coating in your mouth. I'm not really tasting the sulfur notes, you know. I did nose them, but the The Oloroso casks are starting to play in here now, so I am getting a wee bit of that wood. But there's nothing biting, there's nothing prickly about it. Orange lemon. Almost maybe some rice pudding mixed in there. Chocolate, mocha, coffee, slight bit of tobacco, and I'm just amazed at the difference in the coating on your mouth there. I'm going to give it a little water. Let's see what this guy does with water. Okay, we're now doing the 15 with water. And we will give it the nose. Intense Christmas cake and pudding. Maybe some some cordial. That's the cherry cordial. Getting some some crisps, some blueberry, blackberry crisp, and the dates, the figs, sultanas, the plums, the prunes, all those things the 17 had, eh? But more intense and sweeter. That's why I'm wondering how much PX is in here. If it's just Oloroso, or if there's some PX going on. The water does open it up. You're getting a lot of fragrance, a huge garden thing going on in the background, like I'm talking flower garden. You know, it's rose garden. And we've got, it's a cologne. Let's do the palate with water. Cilantro. Again, you know, maple syrup, really sweeten it up. Maple syrup and a little bit of grape juice. Maple syrup and grape juice. We got, I've said enough about the Christmas cake, but it's there. It's just so intense compared to the 17. You're just getting more of a bang. But similar notes, you know, you've got the citrus notes, the orange chocolate. It's creamy. You've got the tobacco's all but disappeared there in the background, but the spices are still there. You're still getting a lot of that cinnamon and ginger, and you're getting probably a little bit of... I just had a flash right there, just for a brief moment. Something, one of the Indian spices there, but it wasn't curry, it was something else. And just got a little flash of it there, but it'll come to me later on. The explosion you get of with water of different notes. Sometimes I can't even keep track of what they are, but I'm going to just say it was similar to curry, whatever I got there. It's an Indian spice, and it's when I have some chai teas, so I'm going to say very chai. You know, some of the chai teas have some of the Indian spices in them there. So I'm going to stay with the black and the red licorice there. I mentioned the cherry cordial. We've got an array of cookies going on here. Shortbread and raisin and filbers and almonds, and very nutty, you know. It really amplifies the water, really amplifies it. This overall, the 15 is you're getting such a heavy hit compared to the 17. And of late the 17 of course has gone up in price, and I've always had the 17 around, and probably as many 17s as 15s, but of late it's been more the 15. In fact, looking at the bottles, I've gone through a lot less of the 17 than the 15. Part of it, the price. I mean, you're paying, I got this on sale around the 170 range, but it's over 200, 210-ish in Canada today. This has gone up to the 15. The 15's up in the 100, and I paid a 150-ish, somewhere around there for it, and then it's gone up to 160, 65. I might have paid that, I don't know. But just the fact that it costs less, the 15. I just find that it's giving you what the 17 is. Now, it has a lot to do with my mood. If I'm in a certain mood, I love the 17, don't get me wrong. And, what did I eat that day? What time of the year is it? What time of the day is it? Etc. There's times I really do like the 17. But of late, the 15 has kind of taken place. And I think it was originally was the price, was what kind of started us, myself, not purchasing as many of the 17s as I was the 15. But when we look at the price that's factored in now, it's going to be harder to purchase the 17. I am going to say that Glenfarclus still is one of the best priced quality whiskeys out there. If you're comparing it, let's say, to a quality Macallan. Now, I'm talking the sherry casks. I'm not talking about the other Macallans. I think are a rip-off, really, because they've gone to cheaper casks. They don't have the good cask quality that the sherry casks that they were using, like the sherry oaks and that. But you're paying a fortune for those. So you factor that in. It's just, there's no way I'm buying a Macallan. I'll buy the 12 sherry oak. This is the most that I'll spend on. The price of a quality whiskey today has gone up. This is a quality whiskey. It's still reasonable compared to these other whiskeys that have all skyrocketed. And if you're comparing it to a Glenlivet, well, we can get, this is at least 43. Glenlivet's gone down to 40. They're 18. Where do you find a Glenlivet at a decent price that's a 46? And, we can keep going on, Glenfiddich. But let's start looking at some of the really well-respected distilleries like Springbank. Springbank out of the distillery is a decent whiskey, a decent price for that whiskey. But by the time it gets here and you got all the brokers playing with it, it's done this in price. So this is still, incomparably speaking to those other whiskeys, it's not skyrocketed. It's gone up, but it hasn't skyrocketed. So kudos to them. They kept the quality. I think they've stuck with their core values. How am I going to score these? They certainly, you're not going to have the 15 anymore less in a score than the 17. I mean, if I was going to score these 86, 87, they're both going to be, depending on my mood, I mean, I would probably squeak right now I would squeak the 15 above the 17 and give it a point more, because I just feel it's giving me that much more. Maybe on another day I might find that they're probably equal. But I'm going to say 86, 87 between the two of these here. I'll put the score down, and you can take a look at that score, and then you remember, this is my palate. It's today. It's my mood today. But I'll leave that one with you. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, and do not drink and drive. Until the next time. Cilantro.